The federal courthouse in Pensacola, Florida, stood resolute under a blazing February sun, its red brick exterior a quiet sentinel amid the coastal breeze. Inside, Room 5 thrummed with a frenetic energy that belied the building's calm facade. The gallery was packed to the brim. Reporters lined the walls, their laptops glowing with live feeds. Political aides whispered into phones, their faces etched with tension, and onlookers pressed close, drawn by the promise of a scandal that could topple a rising star. Outside, chaos reigned. News vans clogged the narrow streets, their satellite dishes piercing the sky, while protesters clashed in a cacophony of shouts. "Gaetz guilty," blared one group, waving signs in bold black, countered by "Matt stand strong" in a flurry of red and blue. The air buzzed with anticipation, a storm brewing over a trial that threatened to shake Florida's political core. At the center of this maelstrom sat Matt Gaetz, the brash U.S. representative from Florida's 1st Congressional District, known for his fiery populism and unwavering loyalty to conservative causes. At 42, his dark hair was slicked back, his sharp features set in a defiant smirk, his tailored charcoal suit projecting the confidence of a man who'd thrived on controversy until now. Gaetz faced a federal lawsuit accusing him of perjury and obstruction of justice, stemming from an alleged cover-up of illicit payments to associates during a 2023 investigation into his personal conduct. The charges had erupted months after he'd narrowly won re-election in 2024, a victory overshadowed by whispers of scandal. Gaetz dismissed the case as a deep state hit job, but the stakes were sky high and the nation was watching. The room hushed as the bailiff's voice rang out. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Margaret Reynolds." A woman in her late 50s strode in, her black robe crisp and authoritative, her auburn hair pulled into a tight bun beneath a stern expression. Judge Margaret Reynolds was a Pensacola native with a reputation as a judicial bulldog, her sharp blue eyes and clipped voice commanding respect across 3 decades on the bench. Known for her meticulous attention to detail and a zero-tolerance policy for deceit, Reynolds had a history of unraveling lies in high-stakes cases from corporate fraud to political corruption. Today, she carried an air of quiet authority, her gaze sweeping the courtroom before settling briefly on Gaetz. Reynolds took her seat, adjusting a stack of files with a steady hand. "This is a court of law, not a circus," she said, her voice sharp and clear, cutting through the tension like a blade. "I expect truth, not theatrics. Let's proceed." Gaetz's smirk flickered, a hint of unease passing through his dark eyes as he adjusted his tie. Beside him sat Thomas Bradley, his defense attorney, a seasoned litigator with a smooth demeanor and a knack for spinning narratives. Across the aisle stood Alicia Torres, the prosecutor, a fierce, compact woman with a relentless drive, her dark suit as sharp as her determination. Torres had spent months building a case to pin Gaetz to the wall, and she was ready to strike. The gallery shifted, a collective breath held as the trial of one of Congress's most polarizing figures began. Outside, the Gulf breeze rustled the palms, but inside, the real tempest was about to break. The courtroom's harsh fluorescent lights cast a stark glow as Alicia Torres rose from her seat, her heels clicking against the tiled floor. Her opening statement was her chance to strike first, to paint Matt Gaetz as a liar caught in his own web before the defense could weave a countertale. She faced the 12-jurors mix of Pensacola locals, from fishermen to retirees, and began, her voice steady and piercing. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is about one thing: honesty. Matt Gaetz, a U.S. congressman sworn to uphold the law, lied under oath to cover up illicit payments to associates during a 2023 investigation into his conduct. He funneled $2 million through a shell company, Gulf Coast Ventures, to silence witnesses and obstruct justice. This wasn't a slip or a misunderstanding, was a calculated deception, and we'll prove it beyond a doubt." Torres paused, letting her words settle. The jurors sat attentive, some scribbling notes, others glancing at Gaetz, whose smirk remained fixed but strained. "You'll see bank records, hear from witnesses who handled the money, and review testimony that shows Gaetz perjured himself to protect his secrets, she continued. He hid behind his office while breaking his oath, and today, he'll face the consequences. As Torres sat, Thomas Bradley stood, his movements smooth and assured. He adjusted his tie and offered the jury a disarming smile, his voice calm and measured. Ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard is a fictiona partisan attack dressed up as justice. Matt Gaetz has served this district with passion and integrity, fighting for the people of Florida. He trusted his team to manage financial matters, and if errors occurred, they weren't his. This lawsuit is a vendetta, a desperate attempt by political foes to silence a voice they can't control. They'll throw numbers and accusations at you, but they won't prove he lied because he didn't. Bradley paced slowly, his hands clasped behind him. Matt Gaetz is a target, not a criminal. By the end of this trial, you'll see the truth. He's innocent of these baseless charges. The opening statements set the stage. Evidence versus loyalty, deceit versus defamation. The courtroom hummed as reporters tapped out updates. The hashtag Gaetz trial surging online, splitting the digital crowd. Some cheered Gaetz as a victim of politics. Others branded him a crook finally cornered. Torres called her first witness, Dr. Kevin Patel, a forensic accountant with a knack for untangling financial knots. Patel, a wiry man in his 40s with a neatly trimmed beard, took the stand, a thick binder of records in hand. Dr. Patel, Torres began, holding up a stack of bank statements. What do these documents reveal? Patel adjusted his glasses and spoke evenly. They show $2 million transferred from Gaetz's campaign accounts to Gulf Coast Ventures over 6 months in 2023, labeled as consulting fees. Gulf Coast then redirected the funds. $1 million went to cash payment for 2 associates under investigation, and $800,000 covered personal expenses travel, a yacht lease tied to Gaetz himself. The gallery murmured, a wave of surprise rippling through. Torres pressed on. Could this be a mistake? No, Patel said. The transactions were structured to avoid scrutiny, split into smaller amounts, funneled through a shell company with no real operations. It's intentional. Bradley rose for cross-examination, his tone casual but pointed. Dr. Patel, campaign finance is messy, isn't it? It can be, Patel admitted. And couldn't a staffer have mishandled this without Mr. Gaetz's knowledge? It's possible, Patel said, but the personal benefits suggest he was involved. Bradley smirked at the jury. Suggest, not confirm. No proof, Mr. Gaetz authorized these. Not directly in these records, Patel replied. No further questions, Bradley said, sowing doubt as he sat. Next, Torres called Lisa Harper, a former Gaetz associate turned whistleblower. Harper, a nervous woman in her 30s with short blonde hair, took the stand, her hands fidgeting as she swore in. MS. Harper, Torres asked, what did you witness working for Mr. Gaetz? Harper swallowed hard, her voice shaky but resolute. I was a scheduler in 2023. I overheard him tell an associate, pay them off through Gulf Coast, keep it quiet. He said it'd stop the investigation from digging deeper. The room buzzed. Torres leaned in. He knew it was to obstruct justice? Yes, Harper said, her voice firming. He told me later, they'll never prove it to recovered. Bradley pounced during cross-examination. MS. Harper, you were fired, weren't you? Yes, she admitted, flushing. For poor performance? For asking too many questions, she countered. So, this is revenge? Bradley asked, turning to the jury. No, it's the truth, Harper insisted, her eyes flashing. As the first day closed, the jury sat divided. Torres's evidence was compelling, but Bradley's doubts lingered. Gaetz maintained his smirk, but the cracks were forming, setting the stage for Judge Reynolds' explosive catch of his lie. Below is the continuation of the story. Judge Reynolds catches Matt Gaetz lying under oath and the courtroom erupts. Featuring Section 3, witness testimonies, and Section 4, Gaetz's defense, written in American English. These sections total approximately 2,000 words, deepening the courtroom drama with compelling witness accounts and Gaetz's attempt to defend himself, building tension toward Judge Reynolds' pivotal moment of catching his lie. The second day of Matt Gaetz's trial unfolded under a blistering Pensacola sun, Room 5 of the federal courthouse simmering with a restless energy that matched the coastal heat. The gallery was a packed, Crucible reporters crowded the back, their laptops a relentless chorus of clicks as they fueled a growing national frenzy. Spectators sat shoulder to shoulder, their whispers a low buzz beneath the groan of the overworked air conditioning. Prosecutor Alicia Torres stood at her table, her compact frame radiating intensity, her dark eyes sharp with purpose as she prepared to tighten the noose with a trio of witnesses whose testimonies could dismantle Gaetz's defense. First to take the stand was Dr. Kevin Patel, the forensic accountant whose meticulous work had already stirred the case. He settled into the witness chair, his neatly trimmed beard framing a face calm but resolute, his binder of financial records open before him. Dr. Patel, Torres began, holding up a highlighted bank statement. You've traced $2 million from Gaetz's campaign to Gulf Coast Ventures. Can you elaborate on what that money funded? Patel adjusted his glasses, his voice even and precise. The funds were transferred over 6 months in 2023, labeled as consulting fees. Gulf Coast Ventures then redirected them. $1 million went to cash payments for 2 associates under investigation hush money, essentially. Another $800,000 covered personal expenses, yacht lease, private travel, luxury purchases, all tied directly to Mr. Gaetz. The gallery hummed, a ripple of shock spreading through the crowd. Torres pressed further. In your expert opinion, could this be an error? No, Patel said firmly. The transactions were structured to evade detection, split into smaller increments, funneled through a shell company with no legitimate operations. It's deliberate, not accidental. Thomas Bradley, Gaetz's defense attorney, rose for cross-examination, his tone smooth but edged with skepticism. Dr. Patel, you're assuming intent. Couldn't a campaign aide have arranged this without Mr. Gaetz's knowledge? It's possible, Patel admitted, but the personal benefits, his yacht trips, his travel, suggest he was involved. Bradley offered the jury a faint smirk. Suggest, not prove. No evidence, Mr. Gaetz personally authorized these. Not directly in these records, Patel conceded. No further questions, Bradley said, planting a seed of doubt as he sat. Next, Torres called Lisa Harper, the former aide whose insider account had hinted at Gaetz's complicity. Harper took the stand, her short blonde hair framing a face tight with nerves, her hands clasped as she faced the room. Ms. Harper, Torres asked, you overheard Mr. Gaetz discuss Gulf Coast Ventures. What did he say? Harper swallowed hard, her voice trembling but gaining strength. It was April 2023, in his Pensacola office. I heard him tell an associate, pay them off through Gulf Coast, keep it quiet. Later, he told me, this stays buried, they'll never prove it. The courtroom buzzed with tension. Torres leaned in. Did he know it was to obstruct justice? Yes, Harper said, her voice firming. He said, we're covered, like it was all planned. Gasps punctuated the air. Torres nodded. No further questions. Bradley stood, his eyes narrowing. Ms. Harper, you were fired from Gaetz's team, weren't you? Yes, she admitted, her cheeks flushing. For poor performance? For asking about shady payments, she countered, her voice rising. So this is personal, Bradley said, turning to the jury. A disgruntled ex-employee with an axe to grind? I'm here for the truth, Harper insisted, her gaze defiant. Bradley sat, leaving the jury to weigh her credibility. Torres had one more witness to unleash, David Morales, a late addition whose name sent a jolt through the room. Morales, a former Gulf Coast Ventures accountant, stepped forward, a wiry man in his 30s with a nervous gait and a haunted look. Mr. Morales, Torres began gently, why are you testifying today? Morales rubbed his hands together, his voice low but clear. I handled the books for Gulf Coast Ventures. Gaetz told me to move the money, said it was for protection. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. The room stilled. What protection? Torres pressed. In May 2023, he called me directly, Morales said. He said, $2 million keeps the investigation off my back, make it disappear. He wanted it hidden from the feds. A stunned silence fell. Torres held up a small recorder. Do you have proof? Yes, Morales said, nodding. I taped the call. I kept it in case he turned on me. Bradley shot up. Objection. This recording's legality is unverified. Judge Reynolds' voice cut through like a whip. Overruled. Play it, MS. Torres. Torres pressed play, and Gaetz' voice crackled through. Move $2 million through Gulf Coast keeps the investigation off my back. Make it disappear. Morales' voice followed. That's a lot to hide, Matt. Gaetz snapped. Just do it, he won't catch me. Chaos erupted. Reporters scribbled. Spectators gasped. And Gaetz' smirk faltered, his hands clenching the table as his dark eyes widened. Torres faced the jury. No further questions. Bradley tried to discredit Morales, questioning his motives and suggesting tampering. But the jury's eyes lingered on Gaetz, whose composure was cracking. As Morales stepped down, the trial's tide had turned, setting the stage for Reynolds' explosive catch. The third day opened with Room 5 simmering with anticipation. David Morales' recording had shifted the trial's momentum, and now Matt Gaetz would take the stand to claw back his narrative. Thomas Bradley had spent the night coaching him, crafting a defense rooted in his brash persona and populist appeal. As Gaetz rose, the courtroom hushed, every eye on the congressman. He strode to the witness box, his charcoal suit sharp, his dark hair slicked back. He swore the oath and sat, his hands clasped, projecting the defiant smirk that had carried him through years of controversy. Bradley approached, his tone warm and confident. Mr. Gaetz, did you knowingly lie under oath or obstruct justice? No, Gaetz said, his voice firm, meeting the jury's gaze. I fought for Florida with everything I've got against the swamp, against the feds. I trusted my team to handle finances and investigations. I didn't lie or cover anything up. What about the recording? Bradley prompted. It's twisted, Gaetz replied smoothly. I was talking strategy, protecting my campaign from baseless attacks. Disappear meant managing optics, not hiding crimes. You deny all wrongdoing? Completely, he said, his smirk widening. This is a witch hunt, and I'm the target. Bradley nodded, satisfied, and sat. Alicia Torres rose, her eyes sharp with intent, clutching a folder of emails and transcripts. Mr. Gaetz, she began, you say you trusted your team. But here's an email you sent. Gulf Coast handles the payments, keep it off the radar. Explain that. Gaetz shrugged, his smirk holding. I meant off the public radar optics, not illegality. Torres arched a brow. Really? Another email. Investigations close, pay them now. That's you ordering a cover-up, isn't it? No, Gaetz said, his voice tightening. It was about settling debts, not hiding anything. Torres held up the recording transcript. You said $2 million keeps the investigation off my back. That's obstruction, not optics. I misspoke, Gaetz said, his smirk faltering. I meant keeping the campaign safe from harassment. Misspoke, Torres pressed. Your accountant warned it was risky, and you said, they won't catch me. That's not trust, that's a plan. I relied on my team, Gaetz insisted, his tone rising. To break the law, Torres shot back, producing a bank statement. $800,000 for your yacht trips, paid by Gulf Coast. You didn't know? It's not mine, Gaetz snapped. I don't control those accounts. But you sailed on it, Torres said, turning to the jury. Fighting for Florida doesn't explain this. Bradley objected, speculation, and Reynolds sustained it, but the jury's faces showed doubt creeping in. Torres kept the pressure on, dismantling Gaetz' story piece by piece. By the end, he stepped down, his smirk gone, sweat beading on his brow. The room buzzed with whispers, and Judge Reynolds watched, her blue eyes hinting at the moment she'd catch his lie. The fourth day of Matt Gaetz' trial arrived with Room 5 of the Pensacola Federal Courthouse, steeped in a sweltering tension that matched the oppressive February heat outside. The gallery was a pressure cooker of reporters spilled into every corner. Their laptops a relentless symphony of clicks as they fed live updates to a captivated nation. Spectators packed the benches, their murmurs a low roar beneath the groan of the straining air conditioning. Prosecutor Alicia Torres stood at her table, her compact frame radiating a fierce determination, her dark eyes gleaming with the certainty of a hunter poised to strike. The previous day's testimony had rocked the courtroom, but what came next would shatter Gaetz' defense beyond repair. Torres rose, her voice cutting through the charged silence like a blade. The prosecution calls David Morales to the stand. A jolt of surprise rippled through the room as David Morales stepped forward, a wiry man in his 30s, his dark hair tousled, his plain suit unable to mask the nervous tremor in his hands. As a former accountant for Gulf Coast Ventures, Morales had been a shadow figure in the case until this moment. He took the stand, his haunted eyes avoiding Gaetz, who sat at the defense table, his smirk faltering as he gripped the table's edge. "Mr. Morales," Torres began, her tone steady but probing, "what was your role at Gulf Coast Ventures?" "I was the lead accountant," Morales replied, his voice low but clear. "I managed the books and processed payments for the company." "And did that include dealings with Congressman Matt Gaetz?" Morales nodded, his gaze dropping briefly. "Yes. In May 2023, Gaetz called me directly. He told me to move $2 million through Gulf Coast to pay off two associates said. It was to keep the investigation off his back." The courtroom stilled, every breath held. Torres pressed on. Did he know this was to obstruct justice? "He made it clear," Morales said, his voice trembling slightly. He said, "Make it disappear, they won't catch me." It wasn't about campaign support, it was about silencing people. Gasps broke the silence, a low hum of shock spreading through the crowd. Torres held up a small black recorder, its presence sending a shiver through the room. "Do you have evidence of this?" "Yes," Morales said, his voice steadying. "I recorded the call. I kept it in case he tried to pin it on me." Thomas Bradley, Gaetz' defense attorney, shot to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. This recording's admissibility is in proven privacy violations and lack of verification." Judge Margaret Reynolds leaned forward, her sharp blue eyes narrowing as her clipped voice sliced through the din. "I'll decide that, Mr. Bradley." "Overruled. Play it, MS." "Torres." Torres pressed play, and the room plunged into a deathly hush. Gaetz' voice crackled through, brash and unmistakable. "Move $2 million through Gulf Coast keeps the investigation off my back." "Make it disappear." Morales' voice followed, hesitant. "That's a lot to hide, Matt." Gaetz snapped, his tone sharp. "Just do it, he won't catch me." Chaos erupted. Reporters typed furiously, their fingers a blur, while spectators gasped and whispered in disbelief. Gaetz' face drained of color, his smirk vanishing as his hands clenched the table, knuckles whitening. His dark eyes darted to Bradley, who whispered urgently, but Gaetz seemed frozen, his breath shallow and rapid as the weight of his own words crashed down. Torres turned to the jury, her voice rising over the tumult. "This isn't hearsay or speculation. This is Matt Gaetz, on tape, ordering obstruction of justice and lying about it under oath. No further questions." Bradley stood for cross-examination, his smooth facade cracking. "Mr. Morales, you're facing your own legal troubles, aren't you? This is a deal to save yourself, isn't it?" "I came forward on my own," Morales countered, his voice firming. "I don't expect a deal just to clear my conscience." "You could have tampered with this recording," Bradley pressed. "Why should we trust you?" "It's unedited," Morales said. "I've got the original file, time-stamped and verified." Bradley hammered at Morales' credibility as past tax issues, his motives, but the jury's eyes remained fixed on Gaetz, whose pale face and trembling hand betrayed more than any rebuttal could. As Morales stepped down, the trial's momentum had shifted irrevocably, the recording a smoking gun that left Gaetz' defense in tatters. Judge Reynolds watched, her auburn hair catching the light, her silence a storm poised to break. The fifth day of the trial arrived with room 5, simmering in a tension so palpable it felt like the coastal heat had seeped through the walls. David Morales' recording had blown the case wide open, and the defense countered with a parade of character witnesses, local leaders, loyal staffers who vouched for Gaetz' integrity. But the jury's faces showed growing doubt, their trust eroded by the congressman's own voice on tape. Then, in a move that electrified the room, Judge Margaret Reynolds took control. "Mr. Gaetz," she said, her voice sharp and commanding, slicing through the murmurs like a whip, "I'll question you myself." A hush fell as Gaetz rose, his movements slow and unsteady, his charcoal suit suddenly seeming too large for his frame. He returned to the witness stand, his dark hair slicked back but his pale face glistening with sweat, his hands clasped tightly as he faced Reynolds, whose sharp blue eyes locked onto him with an intensity that made the room shrink. "Mr. Gaetz," Reynolds began, her tone clipped and piercing, "you've testified under oath that you didn't know about these payments through Gulf Coast Ventures, that it was all your team's doing. But we've heard your voice on that recording. Move $2 million keeps the investigation off my back. Did you lie under oath when you denied knowledge of this?" The courtroom froze, the question hanging in the air like a thunderbolt. Gaetz's pale face tightened, his breath catching as his eyes widened in panic. He opened his mouth, then closed it, the silence stretching as the jury leaned forward, riveted. Reynolds's blue eyes bored into him, unrelenting, the weight of her question pinning him like a specimen under glass. Finally, Gaetz spoke, his voice a strained rasp. "Your Honor, I didn't lie. That recording's out of context. I was talking about protecting my campaign, not obstructing anything. I didn't mean it like that." Reynolds' eyes flashed, her voice rising with a mix of incredulity and scorn. "Out of context? You said, make it disappear, they won't catch me. That's not campaign strategy, that's a cover-up. You swore under oath you had no knowledge, yet here you are, on tape, giving orders. Which is it, Mr. Gaetz? Did you lie then, or are you lying now?" The room erupted gasps, shouts, and a frantic scribbling of reporters as the courtroom exploded into chaos. Gaetz's face drained further, his pale skin almost translucent as his hands gripped the stand, trembling violently. "I didn't mean to lie," he stammered, his voice breaking. "It was a misunderstanding. I thought it was legal." The gallery surged with noise. Spectators cried out, "He's lying," while others shouted, "Let him speak." Bradley leapt up. "Objection! She's badgering the witness." But Reynolds waved him off with a curt, "Overruled." "He's answered." Reynolds' voice boomed over the tumult, her words a hammer striking steel. "A misunderstanding? You're a congressman, not a novice. You ordered $2 million to disappear. That's not a mistake. It's perjury, caught red-handed. Your story's unraveling, Mr. Gaetz, and this court won't abide liars under oath." The courtroom erupted again. Reporters bolted for the exits, their shouts of, "He's done," echoing as they raced to file stories. Spectators stood, some cheering, others jeering, while the jury gaped, stunned by Reynolds' catch and Gaetz's flailing response. Gaetz sank back into the stand, his pale face a mask of shock and defeat, his hands shaking as he muttered, "I didn't mean it." "Step down," Reynolds ordered, her tone final, her blue eyes blazing with contempt. Gaetz stumbled back to his seat, his legs unsteady, his defense shattered by Reynolds' unmasking of his lie. The room buzzed with frenetic energy, the chaos spilling beyond the walls as the trial's outcome teetered on the edge of his exposed deceit. The eruption a testament to the moment Judge Reynolds caught Matt Gaetz lying under oath. The sixth day of Matt Gaetz' trial arrived with room 5 of the Pensacola federal courthouse, cloaked in a silence so heavy it felt like the coastal humidity had thickened into a tangible force. The gallery was packed to bursting. Reporters crammed every inch of space, their laptops a frenetic chorus of clicks as they awaited the fallout of Judge Reynolds' explosive catch. Spectators sat rigid, their whispers a faint hum beneath the steady drone of the air conditioning. At the defense table, Matt Gaetz slumped in his chair, his charcoal suit wrinkled, his dark hair, disheveled, stark contrast to the brash figure he'd cut days earlier. His pale face, drained from Reynolds's unmasking of his lie, bore the weight of a man whose defiance had crumbled. Thomas Bradley, his attorney, sat beside him, his smooth demeanor replaced by a grim resignation as he scribbled notes that seemed more like a formality. The double doors swung open, and the jury filed in, their faces etched with exhaustion and resolve after 5 grueling hours of deliberation. Judge Margaret Reynolds entered moments later, her black robe crisp against her auburn hair, her sharp blue eyes sweeping the room with an authority that silenced every murmur. She took her seat, adjusting a stack of files with a steady hand, her clipped voice cutting through the stillness like a blade. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" she asked, her tone steady but carrying the weight of inevitability. The foreman, a stocky woman in her 40s with a fisherman's weathered hands, stood. "We have, Your Honor." "Proceed," Reynolds said, her posture unyielding, her gaze fixed on the jury. The foreman unfolded a slip of paper, her voice clear but heavy with gravity. "On the charge of perjury and obstruction of justice, we find the defendant, Matt Gaetz, guilty." A collective gasp ripped through the courtroom, followed by a surge of noise reporters typing furiously, spectators murmuring in disbelief. Gaetz's pale face crumpled, his hands clenching the table as his shoulders sagged, the verdict a final blow to his already shattered facade. His breath hitched, his dark eyes darting to Bradley before dropping to the floor, a flicker of shock and despair crossing his features. Reynolds raised her gavel, her voice booming over the chaos. "Order," she commanded, the sharp crack of wood onward restoring silence. "Mr. Gaetz, do you have anything to say before sentencing?" The gallery held its breath, every eye turning to the congressman. Gaetz rose slowly, his movements unsteady, his suit hanging loose on a frame that seemed diminished. He faced Reynolds, his pale face glistening with sweat, his lips trembling as he opened his mouth to speak. The silence stretched, thick and oppressive, as all awaited his response, a plea, a defense, or perhaps a defiant stand from the man who'd once thrived on bravado. Instead, in a voice so soft it barely reached the back row, he whispered, "I didn't mean to lie. It was a mistake just trying to protect my work." His head bowed, his hands fell to his sides, and he sank back into his chair, the excuse a mistake, hanging in the air like a flimsy thread snapping under scrutiny. The courtroom erupted again. Reporters shouted questions, spectators gasped and jeered, and even the jury exchanged incredulous glances. Alicia Torres sat back, her fierce eyes glinting with triumph, while Bradley stared at Gaetz, his composure fracturing as he muttered, "Matt, that's not helping." Gaetz's pale face drained further, his eyes glassy as he stared at the table, his excuse a feeble attempt to deflect landing with all the weight of a deflated lie. Reynolds's blue eyes blazed, her voice rising like a whip crack over the tumult. "A mistake? You ordered $2 million to disappear and swore under oath you knew nothing. That's not a slip, it's perjury, caught on tape, and your pathetic excuse only digs the hole deeper." The room surged with noise. Spectators cried out, "He's done," while others shouted, "Let him explain." Bradley leapt up, "Objection. She's prejudicing the court." But Reynolds waved him off with a curt, "Overruled." He's said enough. "Court is adjourned," Reynolds declared, her gavel falling with a sharp crack. "Sentencing will follow in 2 weeks." She rose and exited, leaving the courtroom in a frenzy as Gaetz remained seated, his pale, trembling form a shadow of the fiery populist he'd once been. Reporters bolted for the exits, their shouts of "guilty" echoing as they raced to file stories, while the gallery buzzed with a chaotic mix of shock and vindication. Reynolds had caught Gaetz lying under oath, and the eruption that followed sealed his fate in the eyes of all who witnessed it. In the days that followed, the Pensacola federal courthouse returned to its quiet routine, but the reverberations of Matt Gaetz's trial rippled far beyond its red brick walls. News vans lingered outside, their cameras capturing every angle of the building that had become a crucible of political downfall. while inside room 5, the air still seemed to carry the echo of Gaetz's feeble excuse, a mistake, and Judge Reynolds's unrelenting exposure of his lie. The congressman's conviction, sparked by that caught-on-tape deception, had transformed the trial into a national spectacle, a moment etched into the annals of Florida's political history. Headlines blazed across every outlet. Gaetz guilty after judge catches lie courtroom. Chaos ensues. The hashtag Gaetz verdict trended globally within hours, igniting a firestorm of reaction online. Cable news panels dissected the trial late into the night, pundits clashing over Gaetz's collapse. Some mourned the loss of a populist firebrand, calling his lie a desperate misstep in a career of bold defiance. Others celebrated it as a triumph of justice, a crack in the shield of political bravado exposed by Reynolds's piercing clarity. On X, opinions collided. He fought the swamp, give him a break. One user posted, while another retorted, caught lying under oath? He's toast. The secondary players navigated their own fallout. Lisa Harper, the ex-aide whose testimony had cracked Gaetz's story, retreated to a quiet Pensacola cafe, avoiding the press. I didn't want him destroyed, she told a local reporter, but he left me no choice. David Morales, the accountant whose recording had turned the tide, vanished from public view, rumored to be negotiating immunity or seeking a fresh start. Thomas Bradley issued a terse statement. Mr. Gaetz accepts the verdict and will prepare for sentencing. But his clipped tone hinted at frustration with a client whose lie had undone months of legal strategy. Judge Margaret Reynolds returned to her chambers, her stern demeanor unchanged. Her catch, "Did you lie then?" or "Are you lying now?" became a rallying cry for accountability advocates, cementing her legacy as a judicial force who'd toppled a titan with a single, unerring strike. Colleagues whispered that the Gaetz case would define her tenure, a testament to her refusal to tolerate deceit, though some critics accused her of theatrics. Reynolds remained silent, letting the verdict and Gaetz's courtroom collapse speak for itself. The broader impact unfolded like a tidal wave. Gaetz's conviction triggered investigations into congressional ethics across the country, with Gulf Coast Ventures becoming a symbol of hidden corruption. His once loyal bays, fractured, some clung to his image as a fighter undone by a slip, others abandoned him, eager to escape the scandal's taint. The yacht lease, the cash payments, and the $2 million cover-up were dissected in exposés and late-night monologues, turning Gaetz from a populist hero into a cautionary tale of hubris and deceit. Gaetz himself withdrew from the public eye. Rumors swirled off a retreat to his Florida home, of late-night calls to allies, of a life stripped of the spotlight that had once fueled him. No fiery tweets, no press conferences, just silence. His lie, exposed under oath by Reynolds's relentless question, and his feeble excuse, a mistake, marked the end of a career that had thrived on bravado, now reduced to a whisper of defeat. A week later, outside the courthouse, a lone protester held a sign. Reynolds, 1, lies, 0. Nearby, a young reporter named Emily Carter, who'd covered the trial for a local outlet, filed her final story. Judge Reynolds didn't just catch Matt Gaetz lying, she wrote. She tore down a facade we all suspected. His excuse, weak and unbelievable, left us all grappling with the cost of unchecked power. The story closed with a nation transfixed, a courtroom emptied, and a legacy reshaped. Gaetz's fall, sparked by Reynolds's unmasking of his lie and cemented by the courtroom's eruption, had not only ended the trial but carved a new chapter in Florida and American politics, a tale of justice, deceit, and the power of truth laid bare. Of truth laid bare. Of truth laid bare. Of truth laid bare. Of truth laid bare.